Hello everyone. I go by many occupation titles, the main one being embroiderer, slash designer, tutor and author. I have been doing this for nearly 30 years, as Erin said. During that time I spent much time researching in my chosen field, looking for old techniques to bring to life and bring to the modern world of needlework. So I've been inspired by some of the great collections of the world. The Victoria and Albert Museum, the Burrell Collection, Fenton House, the Met in New York, and our own Centre for Gold Rush Collections here in Ballarat. The piece on the right in the image is a workshop that I teach here, inspired by a blouse in the collection. I love nothing more than finding a technique or stitch that no one else has written about, something that has been lost to time. I've spent a lot of time in the curator's office at the NGV researching this particular piece of embroidery, researching stitches such as cut silk pile and over twisting, things that were lost to time, sitting with a magnifier and stitching samples. My expertise in this has led to some amazing experiences, and one was when I was invited to assess this embroidery featured for insurance purposes. The owner produced the will, and I actually married it up that it was from the same piece of the NGV. So they now have the full provenance of that piece. My own personal collection helps with identifying historical techniques, and within 5 minutes of owning this very decrepit box, I had found another 5 techniques that nobody had written about, so it was very exciting. My poor husband Steve rolled his eyes. My research into stumpwork embroidery over the years has then inspired me to create pieces like this stag, which is created only using historical techniques from the 17th century. So there is no modern techniques in this, only period pieces. More recently, there's a little box here with a secret compartment. It is also inspired by 17th century embroidery by a little bag at Fenton House in England. Using the same techniques of the period, but it's been put onto a modern laser cut box, which my husband Steve makes for me for our business. So sometimes I'm asked to recreate a design as closely as possible to the original for a particular special workshop. This particular slide is showing a recreation of a panel of an Elizabethan gentleman's cap, which is held in the Shakespeare's Birthplace Trust Museum in Stratford-on-Avon. I was working from photos and from sketches from a similar cap at the V&A. My own collection has smaller sub-collections within it. So this is my little Stuart casket that I have on the left. The piece on the right is the casket that I'm recreating at the moment using the same techniques. Again, Steve rolled his eyes when I bought it. I have a folio in my collection of beautiful French designs from the 18th century. And that has then led to me doing the piece that's on the right, which is called Bordering on French, again just using techniques from the 18th century, which no one is really teaching at the moment. I have a large collection of Indian metal thread embroidery, including several pieces of beetle wing embroidery. These pieces have also then in turn inspired pieces of work, and we've just come back from a recent trip to India where we saw the pieces in the Jaipur Palace textile collection, and the beetle wing embroidery was just spectacular, so there will be more to come. My work is also inspired by illuminated art. I love illuminated art, and the piece that was on the left is inspired by a little book of hours that's in the collection of the NGV in Melbourne. It's part of the Felton bequest. And it's not a reproduction of any particular page in the book, it's just inspired by the style and the flowers that are contained. Ironically, when it was on display they had at the State Library, they had an exhibition of illuminated work, and they had it open on the death page with 3 skeletons, and it was all black, and it was the most boring page in the whole of the poor little book. The piece on the right is inspired by an illuminated antiphonarium from the Duomo in Siena in Italy that I saw in 2010. Beautiful collection of illuminated songbooks. And the piece I'm working on at the moment is a dragon that is inspired by the same piece. So he's a worm, a legless dragon, and we'll be teaching him in May in Lucca in Italy. So looking forward to that. Another reptile, this time a frilled neck lizard. So not everything I do is floral, and to draw the lizard and get it to correct perspective, I actually visited another of our great collections, the Victorian Museum in Melbourne. So, and you know, it's a pity that most of their stuffed animals have been put away at the moment, but the coin ones are still out. I love wildflowers, and I'm lucky enough to live in the bush where there are plenty of them. I grew up in a plant nursery, and somewhere along the way I also fell in love with botanical art, and so I kind of have a collection of that as well. The piece on the right is my piece that's inspired by it. So in those slides you can see the actual nodding green hoods as well as my pincushion. These pieces are wildflowers of Hepburn. They're all fully three-dimensional embroidered flowers. There's a soft sculpture of flowers that are in the Dalesford area, two of which also grow on our block in Invermay, the bulbine lily and the slender blue sun orchid. The piece on the left is my flame azalea, so it's taking contemporary botanical embroidery to the next step. So it's nearly 2 inches in relief and combining gold work as well. So bringing that in so that it's not as strictly botanical as exact like the nodding green hoods are, and the same with the wisteria. And again, these are pieces, the one on the left I actually embroidered here. I was working on demonstrating back when this building was functioning as a gold museum, and donated it as a raffle prize for the Melbourne Embroiderers Guild. But both that piece and the previous one was taking a technique that hasn't been done before, taking an old technique and creating it to create double-sided. The current slide is the green tablecloth from the collection, featuring the little cicada bug. The blue one is the one that I teach here as a basic stitches class. And finally, it's my signature style to take that same design and work it in Stumpwork and Goldwork and bring it to life in the way that I do, using the contemporary techniques of the old traditional, contemporary versions of the traditional techniques. Sorry. Thank you, everybody.